white guilt.
Let's talk about it.
We've gotten a lot of comments over the last couple months.
Which is great, actually.
Yes, it is great.
Mostly.
Yes, yeah, mostly. But there's some that we wanted to address. So, got my cheat sheet here.
Oh.
So first one, Geraud. I try to avoid bringing race, or religion for that matter, into conversations. And I think this is someone, just trying to say, like, that's how they deal with things, and they're trying to do things right. How does that make you feel, though? Like, they don't want to talk about it at all?
I have of two sides. So I think the first one, maybe three sides. I think the first one, that safety, I get it. The world, I can't remember if we curse or not. The world sucks sometimes, right? And so we have to deal with a lot of stuff regularly. So if someone decides this fight is too big for them, or they're surrounded by a bunch, look, we can't pick our family sometimes, and if your family is just riddled with I can see why you don't want to bring this up at Christmas time, right?
Right.
Avoid it, and that's totally legit. The other side, of course, is that it reeks a little bit. Hopefully the person who wrote this is listening. Comment again. There is a little cowardice involved with this, but again, it depends on how big this fight is. It is not cowardice. If this is a fight you cannot win, right? You're doing the right thing. If you can convince a couple people, then that is really what a good ally would do, right? So it is, yes, grandma's racist, nothing I can do about racist grandma. I've got people in my family who think different than me politically. Whatever the thing is, right?
Right.
It might not be worth it, but if you can convince a cousin or your brother or what have you about what your view is, do it. Then that makes a big difference, right? The other side of it, of course, is that nothing worthwhile is ever done without a fight. And so, but again, not everybody's got to do this fight. And also, let me be totally honest, there are some people that feel differently than you, and I don't want to give them this advice. Oh, go out there and fight for your beliefs. Burn some mosques. Do the things that you want. Like, I don't want any of that, right? So there is something to be said about not everyone going to war over everything, but also, if this is important to you, if you are not saying anything and then fretting it and feeling like you're not doing enough and just sort of riddled with guilt about it, be brave and do more.
Yeah. And I would say, like, my grandma and step-grandfather were racist. Unfortunately, they died before they met Joey, because I think that could have changed their mind. But if they ever, and they didn't say anything that often, but if they ever said anything, I would, whether I was changing their mind or not, I needed them to know that they were not allowed to speak those words or be racist around me, and that I would listen or put up with it.
Yeah.
So, and they were, my grandma got that right away, but sometimes you have to speak up, not always because you're going to win, though sometimes things seep in there.
Yeah.
But also just to show that you are not complacent or that you agree.
Right.
I guess that's right?
Yeah, what silence is compliance,
Yeah.
That's a saying I love. Again, there are very few things that are 100%, and that's not one of them. Again, fight you can't win. I don't think you jump into all these all the time. You don't have to be kicking yourself about this. But I do think there is a lot of value in saying, oh, I hear your belief, and we don't have that belief.
Yeah.
Right? Even if it's just every once in a while. If they know you're not bringing it up because you disagree with them, maybe that's enough, right? But if you aren't saying anything and suddenly your family are saying things like, yeah, we all think this way, and you're just secretly like, not me, I think you're doing yourself and even them and all the people that you care about a disservice. So at the very least, make it known. Maybe you just don't have to bring it up every time.
Yeah. What do you think? Let us know. And then we'll address your comment too. Another part of that same comment. This person was really wonderful because they really did think very hard about this. And I thought this was really interesting. I try my best to treat everyone equally, but I do catch myself being more respectful to people who aren't white, which is not treating people equally, but I swear it comes from a decent place. That is so interesting, and that is a thing right now that I also wanted to bring up either now or later. But like, okay, so my son is black, we're white. Not we, but me and my hubby.
I'm not, it turns out.
I
Yeah.
don't know. But there are a lot of white people who, if a black person, child, whatever, is behaving badly or doing something where you would respond in a way, like if there's a white child behaving badly and you would normally go and stop them, this person is saying like, but if it's a black child and I'm white, I stay out of it. Right? And so there's, which we do not have the, like, obviously that's not going to happen in our family, right? But there is a thing right now. There was like and we should find out what it is, but there was this basketball player, maybe? There was a black female athlete who was behaving badly, and got treated differently because I think white people are trying to do their best, some of them, so they don't want to comment or they're treating a white female athlete who behaves in the same way. They're much more critical, blah, 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 than of a black athlete, because I think where this person is coming from is like, am I saying a lot of things that I don't know if you guys are, if it's making sense?
No, it's making sense. Absolutely. There are kid gloves being put on by some people when they are talking to or dealing with minorities, right? And you know, generally, I think it comes from a good place. When we're not talking about fear, right?
Yeah.
That's how black kids are getting shot, right? People treating folks differently. I think this is going in the other direction where people are saying, you know, I'm putting words in your mouth, right? But there's this, oh God, black people are going through so much right now. So I know that guy is running around, you know, I'm going to take an extreme case, right? I know there's a guy running around my neighborhood with his pants down and talking to himself. Someone should call someone about this, but I don't want to be the person that gets that guy shot, or that person's going through a lot of stuff. I don't want to, right? And overcompensating.
Right.
I think the question sort of is that good or bad? I don't really have an answer. I think in most instances, I think it's the same as sort of the Black Lives Matter approach. Yes, all lives matter. Now that's going to be taken out of context. That's just going to be a thing. Black guy says all lives matter. All lives matter, right?
Yeah.
But this is, I think, my favorite thing that I've seen about this is, oh shit, what was this? If we can find it, we'll credit who it was. But someone did a little sketch that said, "Hey, help! My house is on fire," and their neighbor was like, "Yeah, sorry." And we're like, "Yeah, we need to call for help," and the neighbor's like, "Why? My house is fine. Well, we need to get them to put the fire out at my house." Like, well, what about my house, right? And so there's this place where there is focus, right? No one gets mad at the cancer doctor because they're working on lymphoma and not pneumonia, right? Like, you know, I'm working on cancer. Cancer matters, but all sickness matters. We know, but there are some that are worse than others. There are some that need some attention. I feel like, to answer this question, hopefully put your fear maybe to rest, is that I think right now overcompensating is okay. Now maybe that's not fair because I'm a black guy, right? But I think the idea of, you know, and I think maybe we'll talk about privilege at some point here too, but I think this idea that people were missing a thing for a while, respect and love and being treated fairly. When that happens, we naturally want to overcompensate the other way to try to make things fair or to readjust them a little bit, right? When you start off behind, then just suddenly treating everyone the same doesn't actually fix anything. Now everyone's just still staggered and they stay that way forever.
Right.
If we're trying to fix a thing, then we have to pay more attention to it. If something happens to your car, we don't work on everything, we work on the thing that's broken until we get it up to par with everything else. So I think you're in a fine place. I think if you're starting to find that you are overcompensating in crappy ways, right? Because that can be a real thing. If you're talking to one group of people and then another group, you're like, oh, it must be so hard to be you, right? We don't need that either. So temper it. I think if you're overcompensating a little bit, I think that's probably fine.
Yeah. So, because the idea, and that the funny thing is because some of the comments get like this is only like a few people, I think, still in the world that are overcompensating. It's still, you know, we're trying to swing this way, but we're like still way over here,
Yeah.
right? So it's okay if some people overcompensate, because most people still are not.
What,
True?
but
like,
what? We had a black president. Everything's good now.
I know. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. But yeah, okay, so I think it comes from a decent place.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool. And we wish more people came from that place.
Absolutely.
Because, again, I think it's still way over here.
Yeah.
And, yeah, okay. All right, so here's someone. And this is sort of a typical one where they don't necessarily even watch what we're talking about. They just read the word white guilt, and that is a trigger, which I think is really interesting too, because if it really didn't bother you,
Right.
if it really didn't bother you, why are you triggered?